sin. He does not sin, but he feels the darkness which results from sin. A darkness which is made darker by the lack of mercy sinners show to one another. The lack of mercy which makes sin seem irreparable and irreversible. The lack of mercy that leaves us even more alone. At the depths of this darkness, Jesus cries out, my God, why have you abandoned me?" He even enters into our sense of abandonment. He enters the loneliness of a soul that thinks it is hopelessly alienated from God. However, he enters into that sense of alienation in order to be with us there. He goes to the depth of our loneliness and shame in order to conquer it. My God, why have you abandoned me?" Jesus' cry goes back to the Old Testament, to the Psalms, to those hymns that the Father gave his chosen people as the way to pray to him. God instructed his people to cry out to him when they were in the depths of misery. The cry Jesus cries from the cross would have been recognized as the beginning, the title of that psalm that we call today Psalm 22, which begins, "Why have you forsaken me?" but ends rejoicing, singing, "God did not turn away from me. God heard me when I cried, and I will live for the Lord, with the Lord, and for the Lord." Jesus' cry of abandonment is a prelude to a song of certainty that proclaims God is with us. God is with us. Jesus has gone to the depth of our misery to be with us there. He inserts himself into the midst of our shame so that at the depth of my misery, I can encounter Christ. At the depth of my shame, I can be found by Christ. We stand near ground zero, a place which makes us want to cry. Where was God? Why did you abandon us? A friend of mine who worked here, who did not have very much faith, that day increased her faith because she said to me, "I was there. I can't believe how many of us got out of there alive. I can't believe how many of us were saved." In the midst of the terror, she recognized somehow God's presence. Where else was God's presence that day? And those who sacrificed themselves for others, the firemen, the policemen, perhaps the co-workers, unknown to us, the sacrifices they made for their colleagues. And where else was God's presence? In cries that we did not hear, in cries that we do not know, but cries that were heard by the Father. Think of all the prayers that were said that day, the prayers for loved ones, the cries for mercy, the begging God for his presence, the turning to God that must have happened in so many hearts that day as they faced a terror that tempted them to think they were alone. Those prayers, those sacrifices, they are the real history, the sacred history of what happens that day. Jesus enters into our darkness. He enters into our shame-filled loneliness. He experiences all of the results of our evil in order to deliver us from evil. in order to embrace us to our very depths and bring us into communion with Him forever. Empires come and go. Violence will come and go. But Jesus invites us to be in communion with Him forever.